Well, Mr. Dennis, what's this monument here?
So Goober, let me tell you a little bit about this monument. There was an older gentleman here who was a descendant of John Jackson, who was the first civilian who the Federal Army came into contact with when the Confederates had retreated from this battlefield. His grandson, Mr. Jack Voss, over the course of his lifetime, he was 93, I think, when he passed a year or two ago. He would always come in here when they would cruise this timber in this beautiful place. He would come in and he would put flags up along this earthwork line, and he would tell those cruisers, whatever you do, don't touch those mounds. So he spent his lifetime preserving this, and he got that from his grandfather, John Jackson, and the family, Roland Voss, his father, the whole family, all the way back almost to the Revolution. They owned this property. It was close to the river. It was a critical place, and they realized the historic significance. And so they, in 2007, along with the Battlefield Trust, the American Battlefield Protection Program, and the Historic Preservation Group now owns 57 acres of land along these beautiful earthwork lines for over a mile here. And so it's preserved, one of the most beautiful spots on the battlefield. And do you have any other questions?
There's what, 328 significant battlefields out of the 10,000?
Yeah, Goober, there's 384 significant battlefields. And one of the gentlemen walking with me today said, you know what, he thought he knew a whole lot about the Civil War, but he had never really heard of the Battle of Wyse Fork. Well, it was determined by a panel put together by Congress back in the early 2000s that there were 384 nationally significant battlefields in the United States out of 10,500 conflicts. And Wyse Fork is one of those 384. What do you think about that?
Wow. Well, anything else you'd like to say, Mr. Dennis, before we move on?
Nope.
All right. And
No
I would
more
like
questions.
to say thank you for your sense of humor dealing with Goober the Traveling Bear.
He was great. On the way here, this creek right here, you see it's very straight. Well, this creek meanders quite a bit through these low grounds. Right down here about a quarter mile, there is a hairpin turn that probably turns about 140 degrees. It comes back on itself and goes back towards the river that way. And over towards the mill pond, there would be like what you might want to call oxbow lakes. It's like where it tried to make another creek. And so you're down in that swamp, and it's like, it's not just one straight line creek, it's meandering. And like I say, there's some hairpin turns, very sharp turns, because where you might have a little sandbar on the inside of the curve, and then it's very steep on the other edge. That's the deepest edge. But like Wade said, very formidable, and as soon as you cross, you've got the major earthworks.
Well, can I ask you a question,
Sure.
Mr. Dennis? You had mentioned about when you were a young boy, you fell in this creek. Can you tell me what it would have been like for a Union soldier to have to cross this creek and then attack the entrenchments?
Yep, right up in the hairpin curve that I was describing a while ago, Goober, down here about a quarter mile, there's a little Boy Scout hut, a little A-frame scout hut. And we were barbecuing a pig that day. And I was there by myself, and you know, back in the day, I always loved to fish, so I'm fishing with my little fishing pole, and there's one girl down there. She comes up later on, and while I was fishing, I got too close to the edge of that bank. See how steep it is? And my feet slipped. Fishing pole went that way, and I went down into the creek. And right on the very edge, I was up to my neck, and I'm about 6'2" almost. I was up to my neck, and there's that steep bank. Goober, look. And I couldn't get out. That girl had to pull me out of the water. And obviously, I think I hung around a little while because I was cooking the pig, but when some reinforcements came in, I went home and put on another set of clothes because I was muddy and wet.
So a Union soldier with his full equipment and his musket, it would be a tough job to get across that, correct?
Not only was it tough, Goober, he wouldn't even attempt that. He was smarter than that. he stayed back on this side because there was some bad guys on the other side, and he didn't want none of it. So they all stayed on this side. None of them came across till a few days after the battle was over. What do you think about that?
Thank you very much.
The Goober. In 1964, I was 11 years old, and my father built that house right in the background here, this brick house. I used to find artifacts as a little kid from this battlefield, and I started collecting them, and I got an interest in it, Goober. And over the course of the last 60 years, I have recovered archaeologically on this battlefield and documented over 15,000 artifacts from this battlefield. What do you think about that, buddy?
That's amazing, Mr. Dennis.
Oh, amazing. Nice. Thank you.
What
Got
do
any other questions?
I've just got to ask, we're standing in front of sign. Was this sign here when you were here?
That sign in 1964 was not there. A good friend of mine, Donnie Taylor, who was a site manager at Bentonville, a great preservationist and archaeologist back in the day, lived right down the road. We grew up together. He was about 4 years older than I was. And Donnie created, I believe, the narrative for this sign that sits here. Probably put here back in the, I'm guessing, the 70s. And it's taken care of by our CSS Ram News Camp 1427. One of the volunteers and his son there come here and keep this place cleaned up and spruced up. They do it every few months, all during the course of the year. So this has been here for quite a long time.
Thank you.
What we call map marker 5.
Mr. Skip here, and what do you have, sir?
Well, I just wanted to share this piece of artwork by Mason Jones. This is the Cobb House shortly after the battle that Dennis was just talking about. And as you can see, there's a number of fallen federal soldiers. In the reality of the battle, there was a Captain Bassett of the 15th Connecticut who, after he was passed away, his remains were taken out and buried. And to this day, they have not found his remains. They have not been moved to the New Bern Cemetery, nor have they been returned to Connecticut. So we believe that there is solid evidence that his remains still are on the battlefield to this day.
Wow. Well, thank you. Let me get another close-up.
Okay.
All right. Well, thank you for that.
Okay. One of the things that we want to preserve this section of the battlefield, Goober, when you look out, that is the equivalent of Wyse Fork Battlefield's Pickett's Charge comparison, Kirkland's Charge. If you look at the slope of the land, the Confederates attacked without artillery or cavalry support on the rise there. Besides the line of Federals, there were 18 field pieces raining down shot and shell on the Confederates. So when I visit this battlefield, I always pause on this site to think about this is our Pickett's Charge for this battlefield. It has the same emotion, the same charge, and when you're here at twilight, it has that same ethereal feel.
Well, thank you, sir. Well, we are donating $300 to the Wyse Fork Save Wyse Fork Battlefield Commission. Is that correct? We have Goober the Traveling Bear. We have Mr. Skip, Mr. Wade, and Mr. Dennis. And I hope you out there might consider sending a little bit of cash to help save this beautiful battlefield. Do you guys have anything you'd like to say?
Yeah, I do. Goober, do you know this nice gentleman Bill over here?
Yeah!
Tell him thank you so much for this donation. It'll go a long way toward helping us. Thank you, Bill.
Mr. Wade, Mr. Skip.
No, once again, Bill, thanks for everything you've done for us. And folks, just take a look at the address that Bill will post up online on how to donate to further our cause here and what we're trying to do to not just save the battlefield. Well, hopefully we're going to transition from being Save Wyse Fork to being the Friends of Wyse Fork Battlefield here in the near distant future. And as friends, we definitely need help when it comes to trying to interpret this.
And Mr. Skip?
Yes, I'd like to thank Goober, and I'd like to thank you. Goober, thank you very much for all your assistance on this. Also, I'd like to thank all the efforts for the Wyse Fork Battlefield board game that's becoming on board, which will give people globally, whoever buys the game, a chance to fight the battle in a board game fashion. So thank you very much, and we greatly appreciate all the viewers who look on to the video. Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you, Goober.
Thank you.